There we go. All right, so let's start off with some questions. So review questions, again, this is going to be review. So if you guys are interested in like machine learning or something like that, probably not the best place to ask stuff right now. So reviewing of topics we've covered. Questions on those?
All right, I'm going to go first. I think one of the things I've been trying to do can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the things I've been trying to do lately is just go over, like to see it from a big picture perspective. Because I think usually what happens is we start micro and then we expand out and then it's like, oh, and this is the grand finale. Where if I've been looking at it from what's the end goal, which is basically I've been learning is about the output, and we're connecting this, we're transferring data, manipulating data for usefulness for an output system. So if you can just kind of like one good time, just go over the full stack of what that means and how that like looks as far as like everything we're doing.
So
I mean, I'm gonna go back. I can go back.
I'm sorry, you're slowing down. What was that? I couldn't hear the last part. You're gonna go back?
Sorry, do you understand my question?
No, I couldn't hear the last part. It cut off.
Oh, I was going to say, I was also going to go back to your video because I think you kind of broke it down there also. But,
oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Let me do that then. So what I'm going to do, what I think I'm hearing is that you want basically why we're doing this, right? Which is an important question. Like, what is the overall structure of how the application is going to look, and how are we using it to implement and build an application? So our end goal is going to look something like this. So let me finish putting this Amazon Fresh order, and then let me go to what is it? And let me start sharing my screen as well. I don't need that for now. I don't need that. I need. So, oh, Christine's there with the little baby. Little Christine. She's adorable. All right, so let's take a look at Travel Secure. This is what your guys' applications are going to look like for project one. So I've created a sample application of something really simple. So this is just a one of my majors was IR, and so I was interested in like security analysis. And so what I did was I was like, okay, let's see what the security would be and risks across the world in different places to travel to. So this is a simple application. There's login, so there's real authentication. From there, we have different things displaying. I can go to my trips. I can create trips. This is going really slow right now, though. I don't know why this is going so slow. Oh, it's because I'm using my own Wi-Fi. Okay, cool. So I have the ability to add a bunch of stuff. Right now that part's not working, probably because some kind of weird bug, but I'll take a look at it later. It should have worked. It's odd. Oh, okay. Anyway, basically this allows you to build a application that has a lot of different things. So for example, if we go to, what the hell is going on? I mean, heck is going on. I keep hearing there's babies on the call. Okay. So we have a sign up page that's going to make post requests, things like that. And I have data validation as well. Notice that passwords don't match, invalid email, things like that. So I just made something really simple. If I make a username, let's just say Littlefoot. Now this username is valid because it's more than a certain number of characters. Notice that it says what the validation is for password, stuff like that. Basically, a lot of different things. So this is a overall application that is going to be similar to what you guys are going to build, at least as a small sample. So obviously, you guys would do more than just build a sign in and log in and all that stuff. Now, the way that it can be used is you can use this structure to then build out your entire application, which is adding more routes, adding more features. This is using a database, so the information is being stored. This is deployed using Heroku. This is using Express Server, and this is using Handlebars for templating. So far, we've only gone over one part of it, so I'm not going to cover the models and the controllers part, because that's going to be what we're going to cover in the next couple of weeks. But in the views part, you'll see my different handlebars views over here displaying the different things. So I have views for different users being displayed. I have layouts. So I'm able to use a structure that we're going to be covering in class in order to create a simple application. Again, that's the structure that I want you guys to use, and you guys will be learning about how to do the rest of the structure. But it all starts from the Surfer.js, which is something that we are used to, using Express, sending handlebars, using some middleware, and then setting up a server. So a lot of this stuff is actually here already in this example application. I wouldn't worry about the other stuff yet because, again, like the MySQL integration with the ORM, which is SQLize, is going to be something that we're going to cover later. Like before Project 2, but we're gonna cover pretty soon. And then we're gonna cover, and that's gonna be with models, and the controllers we're gonna cover as well as we get to more of the logic of the application. So that's why we're doing it. We build it so we can have applications like this where we can have something that allows us to do something dynamic. So if I go here, then I'm able to then log in and then go to a different thing. I'm able to use my user credentials. I know this is taking a long time. Oh, now it's working. So, damn it, I don't know what the hell's going on. It keeps like refreshing or something. What the fuck is going on? All right. I mean, sorry, fudge. Gosh. Christine, earmuffs your child. Whoever has children here, earmuffs. So that they can't hear curse words. Just do this. So trip name. So for example, if I wanted to create new data into your application, I also added some stuff there. So for example, let's say you're taking a trip. This is an application that allows you to do that. So you say, I don't know, vacay to LA or something, right? And then I also have like, autocomplete in here. Let's see if it's still working. I don't think it is. It was working before. Oh, yeah, sorry, I've exceeded the amount used for the API. But I think that's because someone else is using my API. So my API key is probably public, which I don't really care. All right, but normally it would show up with all that information in here, get autofilled. Then I can choose like what type of thing. Basically, so what I want to show is this is an example of an application that has like full stack capability. And what happens when you submit, it creates something like this, along with a score. This is a risk assessment. So if you go to Mosul in Iraq, currently the risk factor is set to 10. If you go to like a different thing based on like multivariable analysis, it shows different things. I even have like a static page on here, just to show, hey, you can do other things with it. You don't have to show like dynamic rendering. But yeah, that's essentially what we're going to be building is full stack applications. And again, full stack just means that you're using the database. And so you can see the database is used to hold data about your trips, the information about the trips, the user, getting that user information back. You're holding the processing for all this information on the Express server side. The client side, is being sent the views, and the views are rendering over here. So that's pretty much it. Oh, am I stuttering? Or is the internet pretty bad? Yeah, it's okay. Okay. I think that was Christine's internet. All right, so anyone else have questions? That was just a very high level overview. Shit. I can make the internet a little bit faster, but then I wouldn't be as comfortable. What the fuck is happening with my computer? I mean, fudge, sorry. Okay, cool. Anyone else have questions? Okay. Okay, cool. So what are the questions? Can you go over when to make post versus get requests and two, what is Handlebars Express? Okay, so post versus get requests. So post requests are done whenever you make any kind of addition to a database or addition to the server. So for example, over here, what the hell is going on? I hate the new Macs. Sorry, it's like submitting like 10 different things. I don't know where. I'm not doing anything. Okay, so a post request is made whenever you're trying to submit something. For example, if I go here, this is a submission. I'm adding information to the server, right? The servers then happens to be storing it to the database, but it might not necessarily store it to the database. Anytime I'm adding information, though, that's a post request, right? A get request is when I want to retrieve information. For example, if I go to this page, that is a get request. I'm retrieving information, right? So if I go to this pricing page, that's retrieving information. If I go to my trips, I'm retrieving information. At any time you just want to add information, like for example, this is a perfect example. It's like, plus, I'm adding information, right? Anytime I'm not logging in is not adding information. This is just, it's still a post request, but you can make it a get request because you're not adding information, you're just verifying. So you can set this up as a get request. But for example, registration, when you're adding new information and you want to keep that information secure, I don't know why my internet's going so slow. There, okay. So this would be a post request. Next, is it still messing up? God damn it. All right, I'm gonna be less comfortable. This stupid living room is just never comfortable, or never internet friendly. Go to the other living room. Fine, I hope you all are happy. Ugh. All right, it's gonna cut out for a little bit. All right, can you guys hear me? Hello? Yeah, okay. I do have a Rage extender. It doesn't work because the stupid cable company is a piece of shit. So I just switched to my regular Wi-Fi. All right, this is better. All right, cool. So post request, again, anytime you're submitting information or you want to transfer secure information to the server, then you use post request. Anytime you're asking for information, it's a get request. So the other question was, Handlebars. So Handlebars is, again, it's a templating engine It's used to, so hopefully you read through the documentation on Handlebars.js. So if we go back to it, it's templates. So you can use these templates that are handlebars, and you can pass data inside them. That's the purpose of it, right? So instead of having to write out strings to send back like we did before, and that's why we had that activity before, is like, we send back strings and we're like, okay, this is not scalable. When we want to build a larger application, it doesn't make any sense. So instead we have templates. So templates allow us to write out like real HTML, and then inside of that, then we pass information into it. And that information is in JavaScript form. The way we pass information is just using these handlebars. Now these handlebars are just JavaScript brackets, right? So Handlebars understands that, and it's like, oh, you're passing me data, I'm going to display that data. So Handlebars is just for viewing, right? You're just passing information into this template so you can see the information. Like if I go to my Travel Secure application, and I go to, I don't know, index handlebars, this is like an HTML page, right? But I'm passing some information into here. Like I can actually pass in other handlebars files using this syntax. We can send back a whole bunch of different, so that registration page you guys saw, pretty much just HTML. I didn't do too much of data parsing for that one. But there's a lot of things that you can do, basically make it so it's able to easily pass in data into the handlebars templates. And that's done on the server side. So Handlebars allows you to do server-side template rendering. What kind of request is logging into something? So I mentioned the request. So remember when we logged in before? That could be a get or a post. It doesn't really matter because you're just accessing information. Generally, I use a post just because it secures the information better. If, let's say, a company of 4,000 products, yeah, I mean, you could do that with a string too. So I think Quips Quaff, just put your name, by the way. You're not like, this isn't like high school where it's like, I'm Princess XXOO. So Quips Quaff, I'm assuming you're a deer? Just write a deer. You want to be adult. Quips Quaff, god damn it. All right. Yeah, so a template allows you to dynamically send information into it. So when you structure it out, it's a lot easier to pass data in and display that information. You don't have to worry about writing out strings and concatenating information into that and then sending back a giant string. Instead, you write out HTML and you can pass data directly into that HTML to get displayed. Now that HTML is not really HTML, it's in templating engines like Handlebars or like Jade or Pug or something. Yeah, so the reason we don't create a variable and pass data into it is really bad because it doesn't really help scale. Like if you think about it, like if you have a giant string of HTML, it's really hard to work with, right? So what we did before early in the class was we passed in a variable that contained data, and it just didn't look as good. Remember the earlier activities in the day? It was like it was on like Wednesday, Thursday class, and we passed data into it, and it didn't look good at all. And so if anyone else would look at the information and be like, I don't get it. And to parse through that data, like if you want to do like some kind of like manipulation of that data beforehand, it would be really hard to. It's just like a bad way of approaching the problem. There are in Handlebars, there's like one way of passing data in. You just pass in the data through, well, with Handlebars inside of Express, you're only going to be passing data one way. And that's via the res.render. You're going to pass it into the render as an argument to the render function. So this render method has the ability to send back, I think, again, like I don't really care which library you use or anything, or this syntax. What's really much more important is like you see, oh, okay, we're using this. This is just one of the engines. And what it allows you to do is just pass in a file name, and then you can pass it data. So in this method, it just happens to be, okay, pass in a file name and then pass in the data. So what's not important is like the syntax and how, and like exactly how it's written. I will never remember that. But what is important is like the questions you guys are asking, you know, what are you passing in? What data do you pass in? How does it get rendered? Things like that. So that's good. So this is how you pass the data in. And then this just happens to be how you pass the data in. So any other questions? So far, these are good. These are all good conceptual questions. You guys all came with prepared questions, right? Look through your prepared questions. So y'all can ask some questions about question stuff. That's it? There's only those two? The database server and the storage server? Oh, the database server and the storage server, I don't know what the storage server is, but we've only worked with the database server and a web server. Yeah, okay, so web server. So the web server, the way it's gonna work is, and that's a good conceptual question as well. So, oh, sorry. And SQL concepts? Yeah, we can go over SQL concepts. Yeah, so let's take a look at database and web server. So web server is what's running over via Express. So this is our server.js, and this instantiates our server over here. So we set our port, we set all this information, and then we start listening on the server. And the way that the server is interacting with our database is over here. Do we have a database in this one? I don't know if we do. I think we have it in this one. Doesn't have a database. No, this one doesn't have a database. Where's the database one? Ah, here we go. Seinfeld app. Okay. So the way that we're interacting with our database over here is we have our server.js. So our server.js, we set our port, our app, we set our connection information for our MySQL database over here. So for example, I'm saying like, okay, my SQL connection is getting set up over here, right? And I have my server information being set up over here. And I require all the right modules, so I have everything good to go. From there, the way it interacts is actually with Express, it makes it pretty simple. All you have to do is set up the route. So anytime a request comes in that's a GET request and goes to the path called /cast. So for example, if I run this application, let's just run the Seinfeld app. What is going on? Oh yeah, it's too small, that's fine. Let me expand this. Okay. So, oh, I was denied access because of this. let's see what else. Oh yeah, I also have to create the Seinfeld database. So let's go to MySQL Workbench. Let's create the Seinfeld database. So we're going to copy and paste the stuff from the schema.sql file. I'm just going to run this in here. So this will create a database called Seinfeld. Use the Seinfeld database, create a table. So it's going to create the table, and it's going to create the schema for the table. And it's going to insert information in there about each one of those actors. So now if we go here, we should see, not in the wizards, let's see. Let's refresh this. Here we go. Now we have Seinfeld, actors table, and we have all this information. Cool. So why don't we take a look at the application running. So I go here. Okay, so now it's running. So if I go to localhost, I think this is on 8080, and I go to cast, this is coming back with the information. So the way that that request worked was I made a request to this route. The route then went to this, this request went to this specific route. So it looked for, okay, I'm trying to go to the server that's at this domain, at this port number, and I'm going to look for this cast. Oh, okay, it found a GET request. So this is a GET request because we're asking for information. It then follows that path, /cast. It then has a callback function that says, after I'm here, now what am I going to do with it? Okay, well, we have this request and response object we can use. But first, what we want to do is then we're going to make a request to the database server. So far, this is all web server stuff. Now, this is going to make a request to the database server. So we use the MySQL node module to make a request to the database server. So you say connection.query, select all from actors ordered by ID. So this is going to make a request using SQL query. So this is a simple SQL query. And then after the SQL query makes the request to the MySQL server, it will return back a result. And that result comes back as an array of objects, right? So if we were to console log this, why don't we try and console log that? Console log result. Now let me see what comes back. So we'll do cast and node server jazz. And then if I go here and I refresh and I go back over here, you'll notice that it's coming back with this array of objects. So each object coming back contains ID, name, coolness points, attitude. So there's 4 different rows that come back. And so we're getting that console log over here to display that information into our terminal. From there, what we're doing is we're setting up a string. So again, this is not great because we're not using handlebars, but this is why it's bad, because you're setting up a single concatenated string. This is really hard to work with. It's not ideal. So in the next exercise, we actually start using handlebars, and you see how it's better to use handlebars to put the information in and send that back. So that is how the server and the database are interacting. Is the client makes a request to this server, the server logic then goes to the route and says, okay, well, I'm going to have you first connect to the database. And then the server then says, okay, I'm going to do all this processing. So this is processing over here. And then I'm going to send back information. So this is the response over here. Okay, so can we go over SQL concepts? Sure. So which SQL concepts did you want to go over? a couple classes ago, like parsing data with the songs. Okay, so let's take a look at parsing data with the songs. So, let me see if I remember that one. Do you mean the top 5,000, something like that? Okay, let's go to that then. Let's go solve, and then let's take a look over here. So this one's using Inquirer and MySQL, and for this one, we're running searches based on different input from the user. So if we execute this, we'll see how it works. So when we go to CD songs, and we'll go and type in node top songs. Oh, yeah. And let's make sure I have top songs DB as well, because otherwise it's not gonna work. I do have that. Okay, so that's good. So why don't I try running that again? Okay, so find songs by artist. See prints. So it comes back with the positions along with the songs for all of Prince's songs. So all this stuff, right? If I, find all artists who appear more than once on the top 5,000 list, you see a bunch of them. Oh, Boyz II Men got a lot. That's pretty cool. Et cetera, et cetera. So that's the functionality of this application. So why don't we take a look at the SQL concepts. So what we did here is very similar to what we did before. There's nothing different. All we did was say, use the MySQL node package, and we just made a simple SQL query. So in this case, we did, all of these were out of the CRUD operations in the database. We just did the read operation. So when you're trying to get data back, all you're trying to do is say, select all this from this position, where, and that's generally how read statements go. It's like, give me the following columns from this table where something exists, where some condition is met. And that's what we're doing for each one of these. So for, in the example, like the first one was the artist search. It would be just giving back the position, song, and year from the top 5,000, and then it says where. Now this uses the query parameter to then try to look for things dynamically. So you're able to type in something like, Prince or Boyz II Men or something like that, and it's going to extract that from the user input, and then it's going to pass it into the string. And now this string gets executed in this connection query. So this is less of like SQL concepts and more just like working with some of the SQL syntax though for this activity. All right, Quips Quaff, do you have any questions? I'm totally making fun of your thing for the rest of class. Anyone else? Any other questions, concepts? Just the quaff. The CSV file, what is the CSV file? So it's not what the CSV file concept is, but what is a CSV file? So CSV file is just a comma separated value. So a comma separated value file is just a file that is literally like this. So if I create a new file and I just say meow hat hello, this I can save as law.csv. You can save it on downloads or something. And now this is a CSV file. So in a CSV file, it's just the it's just a way of transferring data, and the reason that CSVs really like are popular is because it allows you to transfer data easily between SQL databases and word processing databases. For example, like Excel, these kind of things, they use columns and rows. Well, if you have CSVs, then I can say hat, hello, whatever, right? Now I have essentially columns, and then I also have rows. So transferring information becomes really easy if you have something to parse it. The majority of code writing right now, I don't know what you mean by processes, but like the code that we're writing right now is in the following way. The way what we want to create it is that we create code such that when the client makes a request to the server then goes through some logic to determine where it should go to. And then after it determines where it should go to, there's some kind of logic that occurs, some kind of processing. It could go directly to a view, it could do some processing, or it could go to a database. After that, the information comes back, maybe does some further processing, and then we send that information into a view, which is to display it nicely, and then we just send that back to the client. Each string is a column in SQL. Each string in this one? Each string in this one is not a column. Do you mean in here? So if you were to use this to transfer into Excel, right? Or in a MySQL database, for example, what you do is you say, like, I could even have column headers, for example, like name, or let's do ID, name, I don't know, hat color or something, right? So what would happen is then I can have something like this, Joey or something, blue, I don't know, Laura, whatever, white, something like that, right? So this is, these are column headers. So if you were to transfer this can easily be transferred between a database, a SQL type database, because it's in table format, or between Excel spreadsheets. So that's why they use it like this. I don't think it's ideal, but you do see them a lot. But these are not strings. These are just, in CSV, they're just like data. It's all the same. If you transferred it to like JavaScript, it's probably going to come back as string unless you otherwise specify or parse through it. Hope this is helping everyone. All right, just like getting more confused. Cool. Yeah, during class, I have to get through all the in-class activities, so that's why I just had the TAs just answer them. I think they've done a pretty good job too. They've been answering pretty quickly. Is the audio still bad? Oh. I don't know what's happening then. I know the reception in here is like terrible. Okay, enjoy studying. Anyone else still have questions? Well, I guess quick quaff is done. Cool. All right. If there's no other questions from anyone, then I guess that's it. All right. So I'll see you all on Monday, Tuesday. Make sure that you guys keep up the appointments. Don't stay up too late, and have a great weekend. No worries. Take care, everyone.